Hello there, friends. Welcome back to RV Miles. It is once again time for me to check in on your comments and questions and respond, react, and answer a few of them. This is RV Miles. Welcome back, everybody. I do this about once a month, try to do it once a month at least, where I just kind of go through the comments over the course of the last month on all the videos that we've put out and answer some common questions that come up and respond to some ridiculous comments and more like that. So let's just dive in. First of all, ton of comments on the last news video that I put out, with the lead story being that Camping World CEO Marcus Lemonis is stepping down at the end of this year. And a lot of you have a lot of comments about that, but some of them requiring a little additional context from me that I should probably have shared on that video. So for instance, this one, wow, wonder what he did to finally get pushed out. And this one, now that Lemonis is leaving, we'll see if Camping World changes their selling and service methods. I doubt it. So Marcus Lemonis still owns, it's estimated, over 40% of Camping World stock. He still controls the voting shares of the company. He's going to be heavily involved. The guy that's replacing him as CEO has essentially been the mastermind over the last many years of Camping World's systems and processes. So if you have an issue with the way Camping World operates, I wouldn't expect a whole lot of change to the way Camping World operates in the coming years. I want to dive a little bit deeper into topic. I'm a little nervous about this because last time I got got some people riled up when I talked about this a couple years ago now, but this is something I touched on in this video about Marcus Lemonis resigning, and I want to add some context here to this just for clarity. Here's a comment referring to it. There's nothing controversial about flying the U.S. flag in the U.S. And sure, of course. So the controversy is a tactic that Camping World uses. So Camping World flies these very large flags in front of their stores, and some of them even larger. So you may have a local Camping World and you're like, oh yeah, they got a pretty big American flag. That's kind of cool. Sure. I love the American flag as much as anybody else. This is not the issue here. The issue is that Camping World, under Marcus Lemonis, has gone into towns and they open a store and then they erect a flagpole that is, for instance, in one case, twice the size. So twice the size allowable by city code. So Greenville, North Carolina, I think they allowed for a 7-story flagpole, whatever that works out to be in feet. And Camping World ignores the building code, does not get, a variance of any sort, and puts up 13-story flagpole. And on that flagpole, they put an American flag. The Greenville, North Carolina city code allows for up to a 250 square foot flag. Now, 250 square foot, it's a pretty large flag. Camping World's is over 3,000 square feet. It's 40 feet by 80 feet, and it requires several people to carry it in order to put it on the pole. It's so big that it can't fly at half mast. It's absolutely giant, and what it's doing is sort of, drawing a bigger attention to the business as it sits there. And again, fine, but the fact is that we have building codes for a reason, and this happens, and then the city has to be like, well, you can't do that. It's against the code. They can't just be like, well, it's the American flag, we're going to ignore it. Because what happens when that business sells? Which is, not out of the question that a Camping World store would close. It's happened quite a bit. What happens when that sells and that store has gotten some sort of permission to have a flag that size? And Camping World has just flown an American flag up there. But what if the next store decides, well, we're going to fly Bob's Camper Sales flag and the American flag too. But, Bob's Camper Sales too. We got this big flagpole here. We're going to use it. Or what if you're the next business over and you're like, I want to have the biggest possible American flag that I can. And you put up your flagpole and you put up your flag and it's the exact maximum that the city code allows. And then this big national chain comes in next door and they just dwarf it. It's just not fair, first of all. But that's really beyond the point. The point isn't about anybody not wanting the flag to fly. And I know there are a lot of people that think that there's conspiracy where there's, people hate the flag and don't want the flag flying. These cities that there's been this issue in, they're not going after other people for flying the flag. The issue is the size of these flags and ignoring the building code. Again, you might think, oh, that's silly. Who cares? They're doing it for a reason. They're doing it because they're daring these towns to come after them and tell them to take down the flag, which of course draws huge national interest. So what we've seen over the course of the last several years is Marcus Lemonis on CNN and Fox and wherever else he's gone, arguing about being told to take the American flag down and, getting a lot of press for it. And look, you can disagree with me and that's fine. I can see your argument, but I don't think it's the most patriotic use of the flag to use it to sell things, to use it for PR. I just don't. And it's fine if you don't. And this gentleman, Kevin, doesn't think there's anything controversial about flying a U.S. flag in the U.S. And but obviously there is a controversy over this. Some people are on one side of it and some people are on the other, and that's the definition of a controversy. And Marcus Lemonis has been a very controversial figure over the last several years. You might remember a few years ago, there was an issue with a meme going around of Marcus Lemonis, and the meme essentially said, "I don't want Trump supporters shopping in Camping World stores." And there was a huge backlash to that during the first Trump term. And it was surrounding comments that Marcus Lemonis made in the wake of the Charlottesville, North Carolina protests. And he was taken out of context. So I'm not arguing for or against the man, but this gentleman here is referring to that. You skipped right over his TDS. TDS stands for Trump Derangement Syndrome or something. The S is syndrome, I think. Yeah. That cost Camping World millions. Why are you protecting him here, buddy? Then there's another comment from Aaron here. Camping World is the embodiment of white Christian American values. So this is the exact opposite thing here. He will be missed. Good for him sticking to his values and continuing to fly the American flag. Everyone who objected needs to be voted out of office. Aaron, you've posted some wacky stuff here on our channel in the past, but this is right up there. First of all, I don't know what a white value is. Second of all, I haven't really ever heard anybody talking about Camping World and values very much. So I think that's, I'm trying to understand what some of the other values are that you're referring to other than flying the American flag. Anyway, this is sort of the definition of one of these issues that people come at it from all different sides. They think, right here in the comments, I'm somebody arguing with me that I'm protecting him and he's a Trump hater. And then somebody else calling him, about as conservative as you could possibly be. I don't want to get into personal politics here. Don't consider myself a Democrat or a Republican. Marcus Lemonis, by the way, ran as a Democrat for the House of Representatives in Florida many years ago. Couldn't matter less. Issues have lots of sides to them. Why are we putting ourselves in these corners? You can have thoughts about different issues. You don't have to check in to see if your team agrees with those issues. What are your thoughts on those issues? And I know a lot of people watch me and like, what side's he on? And I'm going to find out, or I stopped watching him. I've seen people comment on other people's videos. I stopped watching him because he's so liberal, or I stopped watching him because he's XYZ. And I guarantee you don't quite understand my politics, but that's fine. Look, we can have lots of different thoughts on lots of different things. And it's important that we have lots of different thoughts on lots of different things. And, Marcus has been one of those figures that he peddles right in that area. I think the flag controversy actually probably was drummed up in order to save some face after the whole no Trump supporters in my business thing, which again was not actually what he said. But regardless, it did cause a lot of flack for Camping World. To be clear, I mean, several comments are like, I wish you would talk about how terrible Camping World is. To be clear, if it is not clear, I do not think Camping World is a very reputable dealership to work with. I do not like a heck of a lot of their tactics. On the personal level, I've heard from many, many people, lots of issues. I've had personal issues myself with dealing with Camping World. And of course, there's the broader issue of how they drive a lot of what happens in the industry that I've never been a big fan of. So if that's not clear, I hope it's a little bit clearer now. More in a moment, but first, this episode is sponsored by eTrailer. Ever feel like finding the right RV part is like searching for a needle in a haystack? Enter eTrailer.com. Whether you're puzzled about which product is right for you or how to install it, eTrailer has got you covered. Their US-based customer service is available by chat or phone 7 days a week, and with expert Q&As, helpful articles, and tons of reviews and install videos, you'll tackle any RV problem with confidence. eTrailer strives to get their hands on everything they sell, and their website is full of overviews, reviews, buying guides, and tutorials. And it's not just RV parts, it's towing and vehicle accessories, camping supplies, and more. Head to the link in the description and get free shipping on orders over $99. Gas prices are definitely falling, but what the heck is the deal with diesel? This really sticks it to the truckers and eventually all the consumers that rely on the trucking industry. And that, by the way, is everybody. Absolutely. And along those lines, diesel used to be inexpensive. What's the real reason it costs more than gas, but cheaper to refine? What changed a few years ago? So here's the thing. So this was also from that same video where it's talking about fuel prices. Gasoline prices are just hit a 4-year low, just slightly. Pretty much the same place they were last year. But there's been a lot of headlines about how they just hit a 4-year low. But as I pointed out on the video last week, diesel is up a little bit. I know you're hinting at presidential politics here, and presidents do not affect fuel prices very much. There are major issues that they sometimes are behind that might drive a bit of fuel prices, but in general, I don't give Biden the credit for fuel coming down from its all-time high in his second year to where it did at the end of last year. I don't give Trump credit for it coming down slightly over the course of this year. I don't blame Trump for the first 6 months he was in office, fuel rising like 40, 50 cents. That's not how it works. And the reality is, particularly for diesel. So diesel got more expensive than gasoline really around the early 2000s, when it did become more expensive to refine. It is not cheaper to refine diesel. It's more expensive since we mandated ultra low sulfur diesel. And since we did that, diesel started rising in price. There's also higher taxes in a lot of states on diesel. But beyond that, it's also about the demand for a fuel. The price of anything is not defined by how much it costs to make it. That's a minimum, right? Nobody's going to charge you less than it costs to make something for a product. The price of anything is defined by what people are willing to pay for it, the demand of that product, the availability of that product, the scarcity of it. There's just a tighter market for diesel right now, and it's partially due to demand. It's partially due to not enough being put out by refineries, and whether that's refinery capacity or whether that's on purpose, there's a little bit of both, trying to keep prices up a little bit. Obviously, the oil companies do not want prices to go down. So there's, we've heard lots of stories over the years of OPEC and American producers and whoever it is working together to keep the prices of oil and fuels up, or at least profitable while beating their competition. So diesel doesn't live in a vacuum. It's not a byproduct of gasoline. It is part of the refining process, and there is more that has to happen to diesel that makes it cost a little bit more than it used to back in the early 2000s. I did a news video that talked briefly about dynamic pricing and a camp spot becoming one of the campground software operators to start to do to implement dynamic pricing. And I got this comment from Marcy, would love a video explaining that dynamic pricing. Sounds like a campground could really hike up prices. RVing was supposed to be less expensive than hoteling. I just wanted to bring this up because I did do a video now on dynamic pricing, and I did it specifically because of this comment. So a lot of your comments drive the type of content I do. If there's questions that come up a lot, sometimes I'll answer them in a video like this. But if I think it's something that really needs a deep dive into, I'll often make a video on it. And that's where that one came from. So I wanted to thank Marcy for that comment. On a news video talking about the ground monitoring interrupters that are coming to RVs. So it's an electrical device that all RVs will be required to be built with. It was supposed to start next year, and they've pushed that back. But I got a lot of questions about that ground monitoring interrupter, and most of them were similar to this. Is the built-in GMI the same as having an EMS circuit protector hardwired? So an EMS, electrical management system, sometimes called a smart surge protector, just depending on what the brand is. To my understanding, these new GMIs, ground monitoring interrupters, are not the same as the ground monitoring that takes place within a smart surge protector. And there's a little bit more electronic surveillance voodoo going on there of your systems. And I wouldn't be surprised if that sort of gets included in some EMSs in the future, but it will not replace an electrical management system or smart surge protector. It doesn't do anywhere near the things that does. And they will be coming standard on all RVs. It looks like in model year 2028, I think. 27, 28. Don't have my notes in front of me, but it's coming. But it is not the same thing. On the video I did about AI, this is one of those videos that I got really a lot of feedback from. A lot of folks in the industry shared this video around. There was basically about not just AI videos about RVing and the demise of the RV industry and it falling apart and everything like that. But also just AI videos in general and what AI videos are doing to YouTube and to other content creators and all that. So I want to thank all of you for your feedback on that video. A lot of comments in this vein. I would expect much of those many views and comments these AI garbage videos are getting are also from AI's bots and scripts too. Maybe some, yeah, probably, but not all of them. It's not a self-feeding machine yet. They're designed to get real people watching them and real reactions. And you can see that from the other comments on my video on this, like this one. I must say, I've been watching that since it started. I was thinking it was true. Thank you so much for opening my eyes to this. I'm so glad you put this video out. I watched one of those videos the other day and was shocked and concerned. I had let my guard down. Now I will definitely be more careful about AI clickbait. Thank you. And some of those videos are kind of ridiculous examples that are easy to suss out. And there are others that are not. There's a lot of mixing of real content with fake content. And just over time, it's going to get better and better and harder to discern some of this stuff. So I think it's very important that we really do give it the credence that it deserves. It's not just a corner of the internet that we can ignore because it's really becoming very strong, and it's easy for even discerning people to get fooled by some stuff nowadays. And then a couple comments on this end. It's not just AI. Mainstream RV YouTubers are jumping on this bandwagon for clicks and views. It's frustrating as well as misinformation. Yeah. I'm not going to go too deep into that one. I'm not going to touch that one with the 10-foot pole, but yeah. I mean, there's a lot of YouTubers that latch on to something that sounds dramatic and that's what they put out. And I'll guilty for putting out some, let's just call it clickbait. That's fine. Trying to get you to click on things, thumbnails and titles. I hope the content itself isn't that. Unfortunately, that's kind of where we are in YouTube. You just have to draw the clicks. You can't just let the content live on its merit because it just doesn't work. YouTube just doesn't push it to people, unfortunately. I wish it did. And I sometimes feel skeezy about some of those things. Some people think I'm not as, I don't go as far as I should with some of that, but regardless, yeah, there's a bit of that. And then this comment I thought was interesting, sort of along the same lines. I think the higher RV market of 2021 and 2022 was an uptick simply due to the pandemic pushing the percentage of sales so much higher than it would have had there not been a pandemic. Remember how people didn't fly, take a train, stay in hotels for so long? I think the boom for RV purchasing was simply due to people wanting more segregated vacations, and RVs were perfect way to do that. Now that the market is normalized more, these clickbaity channels are yelling doom, doom, gloom, gloom. Yeah, I mean, look, it is tough for the RV industry right now. Things are in the basement. The things are challenging, and they might be turning around a little bit. I don't want to minimize the fact that the RV industry is really tanked over the last couple of years. I do think part of that is what you say here. People bought in the pandemic because, it was a way to solo travel, have your own kitchen with your own bed and everything like that. But it wasn't just the COVID portion of it. It was interest rates are really low, got a couple stimulus checks that could be a down payment, and it's hard to travel right now. This seems like an easier way to travel. And I think a lot of people latched onto that and said, hey, I'm going to do that, may have been planning on doing that in the next 3-4 years. I think what you saw during the pandemic, during 2021 and 2022, there's a lot of people that plan to buy in 2023 and 2024 and 2025 and were just able to buy their RV sooner. They were pushed to buy sooner. And because of that, these next few years have been down. That at least that's a portion of it. Everything is nuanced. Everything has lots of reasons for lots of different things. And there's, some of the reason things are struggling right now could have to do with the quality issues that were forced during the pandemic and the reaction to that since, for sure. How much of any of those things comes together, I don't know. But the reality is that there are lots of reasons. But I think clearly one of the biggest ones is that just a lot of people already bought. I think the next wave the industry is probably counting on is some of those people starting to trade in, and we'll see if that happens. I followed that AI video up with a video about how I make the news here and some of sort of our journalistic practice philosophy over here at RV Miles. And that was probably the least watched video that I've done in several years, but I can't tell you how much the comments meant to me on that video. And I really, really appreciate all the things that so many of you said about what we do here so much. I really liked this one. As a high school social studies teacher, all I can say is thank you. I'm saving this video to show my students primary and secondary sources. Yes, bias in news and all of the great examples you've given to see both sides as a news producer and consumer and what questions to ask. Thank you, Jason. Thank you so much. Again, it means the world to me that you would care enough to share what I'm doing with your students and everything. Really, really means a lot, and I appreciate it. And if you haven't checked out that video, and if you care about the way news is produced and sort of what our practices and goals are here, I'll link to that in the description. I can't find this show on Apple Podcasts. I'm giving up YouTube. Do you upload these episodes or only the hour-long live streams? Not live streams, they're podcasts. It's a different thing, I know. Right now, this is the situation. So we've got the RV Miles YouTube channel. We've got the RV Miles podcast YouTube channel. So Abby and I do the sort of hour-long podcasts over on the podcast channel. A lot of people live in one channel or the other and don't even know we have both channels. But I do the news over here and some of these topical videos and the podcasts over there. I do put the weekly news roundup video, an audio version of that, into the podcast feed. So if you don't want to watch on YouTube, if you want to listen on any podcast app, you can listen to Abby and I talk about everything under the sun, from RVing to the weather, over on the RV Miles podcast. Or you can listen to the news episodes. You don't have to listen to both. They'll just all come in your feed. But I do put those news episodes out. I don't put the other sort of topical videos I do on YouTube on the podcast feed, just because a lot of them have so many visual elements, and podcasts are a radio show. Even if you have a visual element like we do have on the RV Miles podcast channel on YouTube, I know it's confusing. It's Abby and I sitting here talking. It all works in audio. We try not to show things that you have to see and that sort of stuff. It's an audio first medium, where YouTube is, of course, a visual medium. And years ago, we had the podcast on this channel and we moved it over to that channel because what we found was the YouTube algorithm was hurting the views on this channel. Rightly so. Some people just weren't interested in watching like an hour and 15-minute video. So they wouldn't click on that. And that would cause YouTube to not show them the shorter videos on our channel that they would like. But now the YouTube algorithm has changed again, and YouTube has made a big focus on podcasts, and YouTube is now the largest podcast, what do we want to say, viewing, listening platform there is out there. And we've had a lot of serious discussion about moving the podcast back over to this channel because YouTube does a better job sort of segregating them out in the feed. So it's very possible at the beginning of the year, you'll start to see the podcast back on this channel again, because what we'd like to do is get rid of some of the confusion with us having multiple channels. And if you search for one channel, you might get the other one, all that sort of stuff. So I know that's a lot of inside baseball, but I think, some of you are interested in that. And I want to finish up with this comment, which I loved. The comment section always makes me wonder if RVing makes you grumpy or if the grumpiness makes you go RVing. Are there any happy RVers? Look, you can't take a comment section too seriously. There are a lot of lovely people in the comments, but then also, the grumpy people do like to comment. in the comment section, wherever that is, whether it's on a social media app, on an article on YouTube. But, there are some grumpy people. I don't know. There's something to that. There's something, there are those RVers that like never come out of their RV. I always wonder about those people. Anyway, that's it for this episode. Thanks so much for being here, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.